The Mngwa, also known as the Eater of People in Tanzania. Specifically, coastal Tanzania around Lindi and Tanga is known from Swahili folklore and colonial reports in the 1920s to 30s. This one definitely has many accounts of attack and attributed death. The Mngwa, some also calling it the Nanda, is described as an enormous gray brindled big cat, as large as the biggest lion, but striped like a tabby. Locals insist it is neither lion nor leopard, but a separate legendary creature. Its name literally translates to strange one. The folktale, Sultan Majnun, refers to a supernatural gigantic cat called the Nanda, Eater of People, which killed livestock and even princes, using direct inspiration from local events and oral tales. In colonial times, British officials like Captain William Hitchens reported lion-sized paw prints with leopard-like claw marks and tufts of gray fur after attacks. And he wasn't the only one. There were many accounts of European hunters hearing of the local tales of the Mngwa and coming to Tanzania to hunt this beast specifically. Numerous killings were blamed on the Mngwa. In 1922, a spree of night attacks in Lindi town left several people dead. Local officials, the guards set up in the town, were found mauled to death on multiple nights, clutching clumps of gray fur torn from the attacker. Witnesses claimed to see a huge gray-striped cat as big as a donkey seized men by night. Several more attacks occurred in villages over the following month. In total, at least half a dozen people were killed in that outbreak. Not only that, however, additional outbreaks reoccurred in the 1930s. Folk songs also spoke of the Mngwa carrying people off at night, or even sometimes during broad daylight. While not necessarily quantified, the total victims easily exceeded 50 across the region and decades, hence earning its title as the Eater of People. What's pretty interesting about this cryptid specifically is the sheer amount of local accounts and even European hunters trying to find the beast. Something during multiple periods of time really did hunt these people. The Beast of Gevaudan. In and around the Gévaudan region of southern France, in the 1760s, sieged the populace. It was reported as a large wolf-like creature, possibly one or more oversized wolves or wolf-dog hybrids, with tawny fur and black streaks. It was described to be as big as a calf with formidable teeth and claws. Contemporary reports noted it had a tail longer than a wolf's and a swift bounding gait. According to some modern theories, this may have been a pubescent lion roaming the countryside, escaped from a circus. This beast has over 100 human victims attributed to it, and in some accounts this can even go as high as 300. Historical records attribute around 60 to 100, and by some estimates 113 fatalities, plus dozens of injuries. A 1987 study tallied 210 attacks, 113 deaths, and many injuries, with most victims partially eaten, not even counting the cattle and farm animals that were also slain. Reports varied, but the beast seemed to pounce upon the unsuspecting person's head, being able to cleanly rip it off in many cases, where bodies were found headless. They either attack in ambush or simply get dragged away and torn apart in broad daylight. This cryptid may as well be one of the best recorded. Not only were there accounts of many hunting parties seeking the beast, and many accounts of the attacks in local newspapers around the time, the king himself sent out his royal hunters to find the beast and end the slayings. The court of King Louis XV sent the royal hunters to slay the beast, and according to papers at the time, one of the king's gun bearers, 76-year-old François Antoine, on September 20th, 1765, did in fact slay the beast. when he stuffed the body and brought it to the courts, many claimed it was a random wolf brought in to take credit for the slaying or to potentially ease the minds of the people. The attacks did not end after this, however. The beast was still at large, only ending several years later. This cryptid is one of my favorites. Not only does the country have many statues and parks attributed to this event, the fatality count and the fact that kings sought to defeat the beast is super interesting. I'm actually making a separate video on this cryptid specifically, so subscribe and watch out for that. The Nandi Bear, also called Chemosit or Kedit by locals, was spotted in Kenya and surrounding areas of East Africa, mentioned many times in local Nandi folklore and 19th to 20th century reports. It is a ferocious, hyena-like carnivore, sometimes being described as a huge, powerfully built bear-like animal with high front shoulders. It is said to stand on hind legs and emit fearsome cries. The creature supposedly has reddish-brown fur and long claws, and some legends say it scalps its victims. Cryptozoologists have speculated it could be an undiscovered big cat or bear species. There have been multiple deadly attacks on humans attributed to the Nandi Bear. One famed account from the early 1900s tells of a Nandi Bear breaking through the roof of a hut and killing everyone inside. Villagers allegedly burned the creature alive in the hut afterwards. In local lore, the beast is greatly feared as a man-eater that attacks lone travelers at night, and many missing persons in the region were blamed on it. While exact numbers aren't recorded, the Nandi Bear's legend involves dozens of disappearances over the years. Tales of the Nandi Bear were passed down by the Nandi people and other Kenyan tribes. European settlers and hunters in the late 19th and early 20th century, such as Geoffrey Williams in 1913, recorded native stories and even claimed personal sightings. No scientific specimen was ever captured, but the accounts persisted. Besides the hut attack story, British colonists reported encounters with a mysterious beast marching and matching the Nandi Bear's description. Big-name hunter Colonel Richard Minerhetzgagen, if I pronounced that right, wrote in 1905 about strange tracks and a predator unlike any known animal he has seen. Though sightings dwindled by the mid-20th century, the Nandi Bear remains a famous African cryptid due to its fearsome reputation as a brain-eating, human-scalping night stalker. And this was pretty interesting, as it's another case of many locals reporting a beast hunting fellow villagers with accounts from outsiders such as European colonists and hunters at the time, also backing up all said accounts. The Popobawa. The Popobawa was sighted around Zanzibar and coastal Tanzania, primarily around the Pemba and Unguja Islands. It was first reported under major incidents around the 1970s, but new reports would surface around 1995 and 2007. The Popobawa, which is Swahili for batwing, is described as an evil shape-shifting spirit or bat-like cryptid. It is often depicted as a dwarf or humanoid with one eye and bat wings. Popobawa's most infamous trait is its violent nighttime assaults. It invades homes in the dark, attacking entire households and installing fear. It can assume animal or human form and is accompanied by a sulfurous odor. The entity is sometimes linked to cycles of mass panic, appearing suddenly and then vanishing for years, happening often enough where research papers were made on public panic of the beast. Dozens of attacks and injuries have been attributed to the Popobawa during these waves of panic. In 1995, a major outbreak of mass hysteria swept Zanzibar with hundreds of residents claiming to have been attacked in the night by the beast. Victims reported waking up to a crushing weight and a creature touching them in what I can only describe in a YouTube-friendly way as inappropriate. This led to many sleeping outdoors in groups to avoid the entity. While most Popobawa encounters resulted in injuries and trauma rather than death, at least one fatality occurred in 1995. In a twist of fate, a visiting man, not the creature, was killed by a mob after being mistaken for the demon itself. Another spate of attacks was reported on the mainland in 2007, people being attacked by mobs thinking they have spotted the beast. Overall, well over 10 people have been harmed and some indirectly killed due to these Popobawa scares, and the attacks go way higher than that number. The Popobawa legend arose in the 1960s to 70s and has been documented by researchers as a case of collective psychosis. Tanzanian newspapers, the BBC, and academic studies, such as Dr. Martin Walsh's research, have recorded the details of the 1995 panic. It is a mix of urban legend and cryptozoological phenomenon, with locals genuinely terrified of a literal creature, not just a spirit. This one is super interesting, as many claimed it to be an evil spirit that cannot be harmed, yet many got together into mobs to hunt and end the beast specifically. Many mass psychoses or not, something was happening over here, where entire towns and villages feared for their safety, and all of this was attributed to the Popobawa. The Aswang. The Aswang is more of a general term than a single cryptid. In the Philippines, this can refer to many types of various shape-shifting vampires, mostly reported in the Visayan regions. They are a widespread figure in Filipino folklore since at least the 16th century, particularly common in Capiz, Iloilo, and surrounding provinces. Aswangs can appear as normal humans by day, then transform at night into creatures such as giant flying viscera-sucking witches, ghouls, or were-beasts. They often have features of vampires and werewolves combined. Like, for example, some take the form of a beautiful woman who can detach her upper body and fly, this variant being named the Mananagal, or a monster dog or pig that craves blood. All versions share an inherent evil nature and a hunger for human flesh and blood. Aswangs are especially notorious for targeting pregnant women, unborn children, infants, and the sick. They use deception, such as imitating infant cries to lure victims, and have superhuman strength, and in several accounts have been seen climbing on roofs with long tongues to suck blood. Countless deaths and disappearances over centuries are attributed to the Aswang. Virtually every Filipino village had stories of people who were devoured by an Aswang. Spanish colonial records in the 1500s already noted the natives' fear of these creatures, indicating many alleged incidents. While specific numbers per incident aren't recorded, the cumulative toll is enormous. Aswangs are blamed for serial killings of children or murders in a community. They are essentially the Philippines' equivalent of vampires or ghouls. In one notorious modernist case in the 1990s, a series of child murders in Mindanao was rumored to be an Aswang in human disguise. In rural areas, any unexplained death or exsanguinated corpse might be said to be an Aswang's work. The Aswang is deeply embedded in Filipino culture, appearing in oral tales, Spanish missionaries' writings, and modern media. Many rural families still share personal anecdotes of encounters. Aswangs have also been the subject of cryptozoological interpretation as a possible undiscovered species or cultural cover for real crimes. Whatever the case, something was out there. The Nantiinaq, described as the Alaskan Sasquatch/Bigfoot, is said to hunt in Portlock around Port Chatham, Alaska, a remote coastal ghost town. Legends of the beast spans to the early 1900s to the 1950s. The Nantiinaq, which is a Alutiiq language meaning half man, half beast, is essentially described as a huge, hairy, bipedal humanoid, taller than an average man, and extremely strong. Nantiinaq is said to inhabit the dense forests and foggy mountain areas near Portlock. Unlike more benign Bigfoot tales, this creature has a reputation for outright hostility towards humans, stalking them from the tree line. It leaves behind 18-inch humanoid footprints and is blamed for attacks on people and animals. Some descriptions also imbue it with a spectral or shape-shifting quality, some claiming it is half spirit, half animal. Multiple unexplained deaths and disappearances have been attributed, dozens according to local lore, over several decades. In the 1920s and 30s, Portlock villagers reported hunters and woodcutters vanishing in the woods, or later being found dismembered. A famous account from 1931 tells of the logger Andrew Camlock, found bludgeoned to death by a piece of heavy logging equipment. No human could have wielded it, fueling speculation that he was murdered by the hairy giants wielding this equipment. Hunters spoke of finding huge tracks and signs of struggle where colleagues went missing. In the 1940s, several catering workers went hunting and never returned. One man's body was discovered torn apart in a lagoon. Fear gripped the town as one by one, people disappeared mysteriously. By 1950, Portlock was abandoned entirely because of this killer. Altogether, estimates of the death toll vary, but locals rumored at least 30 or more people fell victim to the Nantiinaq over the years, not to mention the entire town now being abandoned. An article in the Hobart Tribune in 2009 interviewed elders who live in the area and recounted the stories. More recently, the tale has been popularized in documentaries and paranormal TV shows such as the Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. Some skepticism exists. Other locals suggest the story was exaggerated to scare people or that the deaths had natural causes. Regardless, the collective memory of Portlock firmly links the Nantiinaq to the town's demise. In 1905, one of the earliest accounts of the beast was when native workers at the cannery fled en masse, saying a thing in the forest was threatening them. They returned later, but incidences grew. Aside from Camlock's death and the hunters' disappearances, people spoke of hearing eerie whistles and howls from the woods and seeing a towering, shaggy figure in the distance. By 1949, with no men left willing to hunt the area, due to fear of being taken by the Nantiinaq, the remaining families decided to leave Portlock. The site is now a ghost town, and Nantiinaq stands as a regional legend of a cryptid capable of systematically preying on a human community. On a side note, most who don't believe the tales claim the town of Portlock was abandoned simply due to a new highway being developed elsewhere in Alaska, and most Alaskan citizens here moved over there closer to the highway to get linked to infrastructure. But this, even though it does sound like it makes sense, doesn't cover the accounts of the locals and the stories of the deceased. Something really may have been here. What do you guys think? There really does seem to be beasts out there roaming and hunting people, whether it be mass psychosis or excuses of unexplained crime. There really are mysteries out there. If you don't want to be hunted yourself, please take a cryptid clue.